Well, with that being said, let's talk about your Chicago Fire, Mr. Alex Campbell. It's been interesting for you guys. And obviously, we saw you guys already. February 24th, you guys were in Chester, Pennsylvania. And since then, it's interesting. You guys had a weird run in late May, early June where it's like, okay, the Chicago turned the page. All right, here we go. And fortunately, international break, and you guys kind of fell back down to earth. So, kind of talk to us. What's been going on with the Chicago Fire as of late?
So you mentioned that late run that begin. No, wow. Try that again. You mentioned that run that begins in late May and continued until a couple of games ago. It coincided with something very notable, and that was Xherdan Shaqiri leaving 2 matches early to go to the Euros. That marriage has been a mess for a long time. I'm of the opinion that he will never play another minute for this team, even though his contract runs to the end of the season. And it's not as it's too simple to say, oh man, all his teammates really hated him, or oh man, he was holding back the team tactically so much. But there's not nothing there. I mean, we saw the team switch formations, switch setup as soon as he had departed, and this is a team that had been so tactically rigid that Frank Klopas was wedging players into a 4-2-3-1 no matter what. And the minute Shaqiri leaves, here comes this 3-5-2 setup that's benefited a lot of players pretty clearly, and also just the spirit around the team was clearly better. So it's first things first, addition by subtraction on the Shaqiri front, and they get through that run of games. They beat up a weak Toronto team in Toronto. That's a game you got to win, and they did. But then they get the doors blown off them in Orlando. They did not play well the other night in Seattle. Well, I should say they did play well until they took the lead, and then as soon as they had the lead, they then played very poorly. This team is at a point where they have an important a couple months ahead, because if Shaqiri is in fact gone, and if they, as expected, take Gaston Jimenez's contract and turn it back into a TAM contract after turning it into a DP contract for accounting reasons, they're going to have two full open designated player spots. And depending on how Shaqiri starts or not, with the new roster rules that are coming in, they might have a buyout at their disposal as well. So this is a team that, crept up to like 9th and then lost 2 games in a row and now is in dead last in the East again, because that's how much of a mess this conference is. You guys know that all too well, that there's a couple of elite teams at the top and everybody else is really mediocre. So it's a situation where, it's the Fire got to get the transfer window right. There's a lot of skepticism among Fire fans if they can or will do that. And there certainly are good pieces in this team, but the injury luck continues to be terrible. So that's a problem. And this is a team that still needs more help. But also, I think you have to acknowledge the fact that away in Orlando is almost consensus every MLS player's least favorite fixture on the calendar every year because of the humidity of that place. And then they followed that up with a trip all the way across country to Seattle. These also coming on the heels of a trip to Toronto. So I'm sure these guys are very, very glad that they'll be sleeping in their own beds ahead of this game tomorrow night.
We all silly like the mayor.